Chapter 1. The quieter South African question. Should you leave South Africa? A lot of South Africans ask that question quietly. Not always in public. Not always dramatically. Not always after a total collapse. Sometimes after another week of load shedding. Sometimes after another crime story in the suburb next door. Sometimes after another billing dispute with the municipality. Sometimes after seeing school fees rise again. Sometimes after looking at tax deductions and asking what, exactly, the state is still reliably delivering in return. Sometimes after one more conversation about Australia, or Britain, or New Zealand, or Canada, or the Gulf, or somewhere, anywhere, that feels more predictable. That is the real South African version of the question. Not always panic. Not always desperation. Sometimes exhaustion, sometimes calculation, sometimes parental anxiety, sometimes strategic repositioning, sometimes a slow loss of confidence in the long-run direction of the system. That matters, because South African emigration is often misunderstood. People talk about it as if it is only for elites, or only for professionals, or only for pessimists, or only for people who hate the country. That is not serious. For many households, this is not a fashion question. It is not a status question. It is not a tourism fantasy. It is a systems question. Can this country still convert effort into safety, stability, and a reliable future strongly enough for my household? That is the consideration. Chapter 2. South Africa is not Zimbabwe, and that matters. Now let us be precise. South Africa is not Zimbabwe. That comparison can be emotionally tempting, politically useful, and analytically lazy. South Africa has a far larger economy, deeper capital markets, stronger institutions in key areas, better universities, more advanced corporate infrastructure, more diversified sectors, more formal employment pathways, more global integration. That is real. But that does not mean the pressure is unreal. It simply means the pressure has a different shape. In South Africa, the question is often not, can this system function at all? The question is, how much private insulation must a household now buy in order to live normally? Private school, private healthcare, private security, private power backup, private transport buffers, private estate living, private water storage, private contingency planning. That changes the migration question, because many South Africans are not reacting only to poverty. They are reacting to the rising privatization of ordinary stability. And once ordinary life becomes too expensive to secure privately, the emigration question becomes more serious. Chapter 3. Remove distortion first. If you want to consider emigration seriously, you must remove distortion. Because people rarely make life-changing decisions badly only because they lack information. They make them badly because their judgment is distorted. There are two distortions here. The first is performance. People emigrate and perform success. A new driveway. A new kitchen. A school uniform. A clean park. A quiet street. A passport update. And slowly the image forms. They escaped. They solved life. They are safe now. But image is not evidence. A curated highlight reel does not show debt. It does not show loneliness. It does not show immigration insecurity. It does not show the years it takes before a move converts into actual stability. The second distortion is romantic attachment. Some people romanticize staying. They talk about resilience, identity, home, sunshine, culture, the braai, the humor, the language mix, the landscape. All of that is real. But emotional truth is not the same thing as structural sufficiency. A beautiful country can still become difficult to trust. A familiar country can still impose long-run costs. A beloved country can still narrow your household's future. That is why this episode must resist both fantasy directions. Not, leaving is automatically wisdom. And not, staying is automatically loyalty. The serious question is simpler and harder. Which system gives your household better long-run odds, and what is the full cost of choosing it? Chapter 4. The South African Pressure Map. What pressures are actually driving this question in South Africa? Start with safety. Crime is not just a statistic. It changes behavior. Routes change. Time choices change. Housing choices change. Children's freedom changes. Small business risk changes. How people walk, park, lock, spend, and move changes. Then power. Electricity instability does not just switch lights off. It disrupts work. It disrupts schooling. It disrupts refrigeration. It disrupts business planning. It imposes extra household costs. Then municipal decline. Water interruptions. Road quality problems. Billing chaos. Refuse collection inconsistency. Public space deterioration. Then jobs. South Africa has a real economy, yes. But it also has brutal unemployment, weak growth, and a labor market that frustrates many who are inside it. Then schooling anxiety. If you have children, the question becomes sharper. Can you rely on public systems? Do you have to buy private quality? Can you sustain the fees? Can the system still give your children a serious runway? Then tax fatigue. Many middle-class South Africans feel they are paying into a state they no longer fully trust to deliver corresponding value. That matters. Because when enough key functions become privately purchased, people begin asking a brutal question. If I am already paying privately for safety, education, healthcare, backup power, and lifestyle stability, then what exactly am I defending by staying? Chapter 5. Why this question often comes from the middle. This is important. In South Africa, the emigration question often comes most intensely from the middle and upper middle. Not only from the desperate, but from households that are functioning, earning, and coping, yet feeling squeezed by the architecture of coping itself. These are households saying, "We can survive here. But what is the cost of maintaining normality? What is the cost of protecting the children? What is the cost of buying around institutional weakness? What is the cost of staying in a country where each year seems to require more defensive expenditure?" That is why this conversation is not just about income. A household can be solvent and still be strategically uneasy. A family can be comfortable and still be structurally unconvinced. A professional can be successful and still decide the system is asking too much in return for predictability. Because many people hear emigration and assume failure. Sometimes emigration is not a reaction to failure. It is a reaction to rising system management overhead. Chapter 6. The price of leaving that people do not fully discuss. Now we come to the part many people understate. The price of leaving. Because even when emigration works, it is costly. Distance from parents. Distance from siblings. Distance from the social world that understands your references, your history, your language rhythm. Higher loneliness. A class reset. A professional reset. Possible credential discounting. Possible downward mobility at first. Children growing up farther from grandparents. The slow emotional tax of being elsewhere. This matters because South Africans, especially skilled South Africans, often leave from a position of relative competence. They had standing, networks, context, recognition. Abroad, all of that may shrink quickly. So the decision cannot be framed as South Africa bad, foreign country good. That is childish. The real ledger is, what are you losing? What are you gaining? And what can your household realistically sustain over 10 or 20 years? Chapter 7. The price of staying that people also understate. But there is also a price of staying. And South Africans sometimes normalize it because it unfolds gradually. People usually notice dramatic loss more easily than slow erosion. The price of staying can mean raising children in a high-alert environment, paying more and more to privately secure basics, absorbing infrastructure uncertainty, building your life around contingencies, watching talented people leave, feeling your tax burden rise while trust declines. That is how systems fatigue works. It arrives through normalization. You adjust, then adjust again. Until one day, you look at your life and realize that too much energy is being spent on maintenance rather than forward motion. Until ambition is slowly resized downward to fit the limits of the system. That is the hidden South African cost. Not only direct hardship, but the burden of constant management. Chapter 8. Who should consider emigration very seriously? Now let us become practical. Who should consider emigration seriously? Parents thinking long run. Professionals with portable skills. People in sectors with global demand. Households already paying extreme private premiums just to stabilize ordinary life. People with lawful pathways. People with enough savings to survive transition. People whose concerns are not only emotional but structural and repeated. For these profiles, staying also has a cost. And if your effort keeps disappearing into a system that does not reward it properly, with stability, emigration may not be escapism. It may be strategic asset reallocation, a life reallocation decision. Not because South Africa offers nothing, but because another system may convert effort into predictability more efficiently. Chapter 9. Who should be more cautious? Now the other side. Who should be cautious? People with no legal pathway. People with weak savings. People whose plan is built on social media fantasy. People whose qualifications travel poorly. People whose marriages are already strained. People whose plan is basically, we will go and figure it out. That is not a plan. That is exposure. If you do not have scarce skills, a credible legal route, enough savings, or a real landing plan, emigrating may simply mean trading one hardship system for another. Some South Africans think any Western destination is automatically superior in lived outcome. That is not true. You can leave South Africa and discover that your foreign life is safer, yes, but also lonelier, smaller, colder, more expensive, and professionally narrower than expected. You may exchange one strain for another. Chapter 10. What people fail to examine. What do people usually fail to examine? The first 2 years. Paperwork. Housing. Car dependence. Requalification. Social rebuilding. Burn rate. Status reset. They fail to examine the spouse question. Can both adults adapt? What happens if one thrives and the other becomes isolated? They fail to examine the child question. Will the children integrate smoothly? Will they lose connection to family back home? They fail to examine the elderly parent question. Who handles illness? Emergencies? The guilt of distance? They fail to examine permanency. Can this move become durable life? Or is it just movement without conversion? That matters. Because migration is not about departure. It is about settlement. Chapter 11. What the viewer should actually compare. If you are considering emigration seriously, compare at least 7 things. Pathway clarity. Skill portability. Earnings versus total cost of living. Schooling quality and affordability. Safety profile. Emotional sustainability. Long-run conversion. Can you enter lawfully? Will your qualifications count? Will income still matter after rent, tax, transport, childcare, and housing? Will your children gain more than they lose? Can your marriage survive the reset? Can effort in that destination become something durable? Savings. Property. Citizenship. Retirement security. Reliable public order. Because migration is not mainly about getting out. It is about whether effort elsewhere becomes durable life. Chapter 12, The Country's Question. Now, many viewers will ask, which countries make the most sense for South Africans? There is no universal answer. The right destination for a young software engineer is not the same as for a teacher. The right destination for a single person is not always right for a family of 5. So this episode should resist shallow migration content. This is not tourism ranking. This is not dream destination talk. This is profile fit. Under what conditions does a destination justify the financial, emotional, and structural cost of moving your life there? Where does your profile fit? Where can you enter lawfully? And where can you actually land with a serious chance of turning movement into stability? That is the serious question. Chapter 13, The Verdict. So what is the verdict? The verdict is not that all South Africans should leave. And the verdict is not that staying is automatically wisdom. The verdict is this: South Africa still offers real life, real opportunity, real beauty, and real possibility. But it also imposes a growing management burden on many households, especially those trying to secure predictability, safety, educational continuity, and long-run trust in the system. If your household can still build, breathe, and plan well inside South Africa, staying may be the better decision. If your household is spending too much money, energy, and emotional bandwidth privately compensating for institutional weakness, then emigration may be a rational move. But do it through sober consideration. Not through panic, not through status signaling, not through social media envy, and not through the illusion that another country removes all pressure. It does not. It only gives you a different system with different strengths, different costs, and different trade-offs. That is the real question. Not, should everyone leave? But, which system is more likely to convert your effort into durable life at a price your household can actually bear? What do you think? Should more South Africans seriously consider leaving? Or is the country still worth backing for the long run? Let me know in the comments. I read all comments. If you found this useful, like, share, and subscribe. This has been the Kopje Journal and Review. Forensic analysis for the African perspective.